Alright everyone, today's video is going to be covering Hunter's Faith, the gear set, or one of the gear sets that just launched with the global event, and I will be constructing a one-shot sniper build with it that does function in both PvP and PvE. Hunter's Faith does require you to have very good aim. On console, it's not as useful as on PC, but it does still function, and I thought, hey, you know, the set just launched, I managed to put it together, let's do a build video and get it out there. For primary stat composition, it is running all pieces of firearms gear, which does decrease the survivability and cuts down on the number of people that may feel comfortable using it. But what it does have to make up for that is one-shot potential. You can one-tap enemy agents pretty easily if you have any sort of decent aim. It is all firearms gear though, which means you're running stamina at 2900, electronics at 2900, and about 10,000 firearms. So that's the basic makeup or composition of the build. Covering each piece of individual gear, we will start with the backpack. Now, I have opted to roll health here, which does increase survivability a tiny little bit, but you can also switch that out for critical hit damage. This isn't a build that's based around consistently getting crits, but when you do get a crit on an agent, it's almost guaranteed to be a one-shot if it's a headshot. And when you're getting crits in PvE, it's also tremendously powerful. So a major attribute of health is interchangeable. If you want to go fully down that route of just being a glass cannon, then swap this out for crit hit damage, but I have opted to run health here. For my gloves, I don't actually have a perfect roll in my eyes. I have a close enough roll that makes it usable, but you can get some better attributes here. So firearms gloves with major attributes of marksman rifle damage, that is non-negotiable. The 12% there is phenomenal. You absolutely need that. I have enemy armor damage, and I have critical hit chance. Enemy armor damage, if you are playing PvP, should be critical hit damage. Though if you are playing PvE, enemy armor damage is also quite effective. You can also swap that out for skill haste if you want to be proccing your gun skills more often, if you want to be proccing booster shot more often. So there's some flexibility. It could be enemy armor damage if you are only using this in PvE. It can be critical hit damage if you're only using it in PvP. And it can be skill haste if you want increased survivability. But marksman rifle damage and critical hit chance, I think, are two major attributes that are fairly inflexible, and you should have those. Next up, we have our holster. Super straightforward. You just want the best rolls you can possibly get, and then skill haste, in my eyes. I don't think that there's any other option that can compete with this. I mean, you could roll it for health, but it's not very much health on the holster, so skill haste allows you to increase the frequency at which you're proccing your skills, and your skills are an integral part of the build. So skill haste on the holster, best option in my eyes. Next up, we have our knee pads, and similar to the backpack, you do have the option of rolling off the health and greatly decreasing the amount of raw base health that you have in your survivability for 8% increased critical hit damage. Now, I would not advise doing this. The 8% critical hit damage, just like the backpack, does not factor in to be that much of a boost in PvP. You don't really need it. Your base damage will be so high if you're using the build properly that it should be a non-factor. However, if you want to go full glass cannon and really, push the build to its limit with maximum one-shot potential, then critical hit damage instead of health, since you already are a glass cannon. If you're building this for PvE, then you need to have damage to elites as a minor attribute, but that's not the goal of this build video in particular, so I don't have it here. Next up, we have our mask. Now, if you're building for PvP, you want to have critical hit chance, and if you're building for PvE, then you would like to have as a major and minor attribute enemy armor damage and damage to elites. Those are the best two attributes if you're going to be fighting NPCs with this. However, if you're fighting other players, then critical hit chance is a no-brainer. Last up, we have our chest piece, and I have opted to run with skill haste and health. I think that's the best combination for kind of a multi-purpose build in PvP that also has the potential to one-shot. However, if you do want to swap this out, you can have enemy armor damage yet again for a PvE build, and you can swap this out to something like EDR if you do choose to roll that in other places, and you want to have a little bit more survivability against things like Predator's Mark or grenades that get thrown at you in the middle of a fight. But I personally believe that if going for the classic one-shot build of this gear set, skill haste is probably the best option on the chest piece. Before we discuss our weapon, let's discuss the Hunter's Faith classified set in its entirety, so we understand why we're choosing a bolt-action sniper, why we're building the way that we are, and why the build does function very well in PvP and PvE alike, but it hinges critically on your own ability to aim. So the Hunter's Faith 2-piece is optimal range. That doesn't really impact marksman rifles at all, in my opinion. They already have a phenomenally powerful optimal range when compared to other gun archetypes. For the 3-piece bonus, we have headshot damage, which is good, but it's only 10%. And for the 4-piece bonus is where it starts to get interesting. Each consecutive shot with a bolt-action marksman rifle that hits an enemy deals 3% more damage. The damage bonus is increased by 4% every 3,000 firearms, and the bonus damage is removed once a shot misses a target upon weapon swap or reload or after 10 seconds. So what you're doing is you're building up these boosts to your base damage just by hitting targets with your bolt action sniper that lasts for about 10 seconds or until you reload your gun or swap your weapons or until you miss. This does not hinge on headshots, though the 6-piece bonus that we'll see in a second does make headshots much more powerful. So a bolt action sniper is critical, and you're going to be stacking up base damage, which can then crit with every consecutive shot that you land. Now the 5-piece bonus has increased optimal range, which is kind of a letdown. That doesn't really matter. You have more headshot damage at 10%, and then the 6-piece is where it gets very, very good. Headshots double the gained increased damage bonus. 2 consecutive misses are needed to lose the bonus damage. So a headshot will double the 4-piece bonus. And since we are running 9,000 firearms, which is 3 procs of the 4% increase, you're getting 15% bonus base weapon damage on every landed sniper shot, even if it's a body shot from the 4-piece. And if it is a headshot, then you'll get 30% increased base damage on your bolt action sniper rifle. So Hunter's Faith does require you to land your shots, but it kind of does what Deadeye never did in the fact that it rewards marksmen. It really rewards snipers. It rewards players with very, precision aiming talent, oriented playstyles, and it is something that greatly increases in efficiency the more shots you can land. So 9,000 firearms, Hunter's Faith means a headshot will give you 30% increased base damage. A body shot will give you 15% increased base damage. Since we do have the 6-piece, you then have to miss 2 times to lose that bonus or wait 10 seconds without hitting an additional shot or reload your weapon. Moving on to our weapons, now that we know how Hunter's Faith works, I do believe that the M700 is the best sniper archetype to run with this gear set. I have opted to run Prepared and Competent, and I don't have a perfect role, but Ferocious should be Brutal, or something else like Deadly. It should be another easily unlockable firearms talent that you can then gain bonus damage from. The best examples, though, are Brutal or Deadly. Either one of those will serve you just fine. They'll increase the amount of damage that you're dealing. Even with just these 2 talents, however, even with a non-perfect roll on my weapon, I am still able to one-shot enemy agents very easily once I've landed just 1 or 2 shots, as you will see in the very small clip that I have at the end. For weapon mods, I have prioritized headshot damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage, but mostly headshot damage. This is a headshot sniper build and not one like Deadeye that just allows you to land body shots and get the full maximum potential. You do need to be landing headshots. Now for a magazine, you do have a little bit of a choice to make. You can run magazine size, which allows more bullets to be fired and maintain the bonus longer if you're landing those shots, but you don't have to, because even just 1 or 2 shots with this build will allow you to reach 1-shot potential. So you can run something else that, for instance, has critical hit chance as a major attribute, though I have found that increased magazine size with a minor of critical hit chance is the best way to go for me personally. For the underbarrel, the best thing I could find was critical hit damage at 19%. For the suppressor, we have headshot damage and a little bit more critical hit damage, though if you can get critical hit chance, that's even better. And then for the scope, we have headshot damage and additional critical hit damage, but headshot damage as a major is the most important thing. For all of my gear mods, I have opted for firearms with critical hit chance, pumping up my damage even further. And then for performance mods, I have pulse critical hit chance, since pulse is an integral part of the build, and it will increase your burst potential. For skills, I'm opting to run Tactical Scanner because it does have a damage base increase, which is another tool to affect your burst damage potential and your one-shot potential, and not a lot of enemy players are concealing themselves with Scrambler. They're very vulnerable to pulse in this current meta. And then for my second skill, I'm running Booster Shot, which further increases base damage and burst potential, and you don't have very high skill power, so you're not healing yourself very well. Even though you have a low base health pool, Booster Shot is the best option here. For talents in a team, I recommend Triage, Critical Save, Combat Medic, and Strike Back. Though, maybe Strike Back is a little bit interchangeable here because you aren't going to be getting low very often. You're going to be hanging on the fringes, on the outskirts of the fight. So maybe swap out Strike Back. Another viable talent here would be Tactical Advance, though you are required to hit a shot within 5 seconds of getting to cover, which isn't that easy to do on console, but on PC, maybe it's much more effective. So Tactical Advance is another very viable option here. And then if you are not in a team, if you are by yourself, then swap out Triage for something else, and you can swap out Combat Medic as well. Some viable alternatives would be Steady Hands to decrease your recoil. That can be pretty effective at 25% decreased recoil. It can allow you to land more shots, especially on PC, but on console I don't find it to be all that useful. You can even run one is none since you are aiming for headshots, especially in PvE. One is none can be very strong, maybe not so much in PvP. And then you don't really need something like on the move, which is a staple in a lot of other builds because you aren't going to be running around that often. You're going to be sitting in the back of a fight and firing off sniper shots. And depending on what else you're running, it really is interchangeable. There's only 3 talents that I would say are essential for a solo player's build. You are running pulse, so you don't want to run precision. There's a lot of different options out there. Before jumping over to the tiny bit of gameplay that I have, and in fact it's not really that much gameplay, it's just one clip of me effectively using the build. I am on console. This is a lot harder to use for myself as a console player than it is for PC users. Keep that in mind. But I will show, the basic functionality of the build. The first shot to the head hits for 557,000. Now, this obviously is not indicative of how much damage you'll be dealing to a player, but as you can see, after that first shot, I get 30% increased damage. A second shot will boost me up to 700,000, and I have 60% increased damage, and a third will put me easily, since even 2 shots, you're already in the 1-shot potential area, will put me in 90% increased damage. And from here on out, every single headshot that I land, even if I miss a shot in between, will be a 1-shot on enemy players, even if they are spec'd 9k stamina. 9k stamina only puts you up around 400,000 health, give or take, a good margin depending on how much you spec outside of that after the 9,000. But once you are up at 90% increased damage or even 60% increased damage, especially if you're getting crits, you will start to deal 1-shot kills on enemy players in the dark zone, in skirmish, in last stand, etc. Now, when you are hitting body shots, you're only stacking by 15%, and body shots aren't going to give you that kill potential because you are stacking a lot of headshot damage on the weapon as a whole. So when you're landing body shots, it can be a great way to maintain the stacks that you have, also to stack further, but you don't stack as quickly. So maybe hitting 1 headshot and then moving on. If you really can't get a headshot, if they're moving around too much, just go for a body shot to maintain your bonus and then fire another headshot, and you can just keep bouncing from player to player getting 1-shot kills. I only have the one clip, but I think it's pretty indicative of how well the build functions. As you can see, I take cover, I'm removed from the fight, I peek out, and I do land a shot here to start stacking. I land a 200,000 headshot, 1 shot, it's not a crit or anything. And then I fire a shot, I miss, I don't lose the bonus, then I land another headshot, and now I'm in the range for 1-shots. I start to get, almost 300,000 damage there. That guy was a little bit lower, but then I crit for 350,000, then I'm critting for 400,000, and this can be pushed even further. That was without certain bonuses active, that was without all of my snapshotted base increases. That was just with the stacking of Hunter's Faith. Then I get out of position, I get flanked, and you are a glass cannon, so you can go down. But this kind of situation can keep happening. This is something that can, you can stack this up, and then it doesn't matter if they're close or far. If you can land those headshots and maintain those stacks, then you can bounce from 1-shot to 1-shot on any enemy agent. And maybe if they're nomad, then they'll get a proc or whatever. You have to reposition. But it is a really effective gear set. It's very fun. It's a little bit worse on console than it is on PC. But I had a great deal of fun playing this gear set, and I think that it is something that I will absolutely gravitate towards in the future. It rewards, skilled aiming, and it's a great addition to the game. That's going to wrap it up, guys. Check out down below the upper echelon forums. Check out, the Twitch stream, the live broadcast. Make sure that you check out the network. There's a lot of different ways to support. There's different communities that play this game and other games. So if you're interested in getting more involved, then drop us a line. Check out the website as well, the forums. Make sure you make an account. It's a really great, vibrant community there, and we're doing a lot of things to improve it on a daily basis. So thank you again for watching, and as always, have a nice night.